Plenty of it this week.
Welcome to Torch Sports. It's an exciting time on Rocky Top, but also bittersweet as well. I'm Allie Campbell here with Jay King, Lewis Maddox, and Tommy Brancato. And guys, yesterday we saw the news that freshman star Nate Ament declared for the 2026 NBA draft. Ament had an important role on this team this past year and leaves a huge hole for Rick Barnes to fill. Here with an update on all things men's basketball is our very own Jack Lennon. Jack, what do you have for us?
Yeah, thanks, guys. I'm right here outside the Thompson-Boling Arena at Food City Center, where it's been a very hectic week for both the Tennessee Volunteers and the Tennessee Lady Vols. Let's get started with the Tennessee Volunteers men's basketball team. Well, big news last night for the Volunteers as freshman star phenom departs for the NBA draft after a long consideration about whether he would return to the Volunteers for his sophomore season or depart for the NBA in a loaded draft class. Ament decided that he wanted to take his chances at going pro. Now, for the Volunteers, who did they bring in to replace Nate Ament? Well, no one quite replaces Nate Ament, Jacoby Gillespie, Felix Okpara, and Bishop Boswell, but they did bring in Day-Day Ames from California, Terrence Hill Jr. from Virginia Commonwealth, who shined in that 11-6 game against UNC in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And they brought in this morning Braden Liu, along with Miles Rubin, a forward commit from Loyola Chicago, who is his conference's defensive player of the year, averaged 11 points per game and 7 rebounds. Now, for the Tennessee Lady Volunteers, a huge shakeup on this roster. They lost every single player on their team from what was a disastrous season last year, but they replaced them with 8 transfer players, including Avery Mills, a former Liberty Flames guard who averaged 15 points a game, is a fantastic facilitator on the floor as a point guard. And they also brought in Naomi White, who is known for her scoring prowess, averaging 21 points per game at Northern Arizona a season ago. Now, here's the problem with Naomi White. Her efficiency, not so great, 39% from the field. But it remains to be seen what she will do on Rocky Top and what the rest of these transfers will do on Tennessee as the Volunteers look to replace, for the Lady Vols, their entire team. And for the men's team, the freshman star Nate Ament, along with the seniors. Guys, we'll send it back to you guys at the desk. Stay tuned with us here for news on the Volunteers.
Thank you, Jack. And now it's time for a check-in with Tennessee baseball. After dropping another SEC series to Ole Miss last weekend, Tennessee hosts the Alabama Crimson Tide this weekend. Now Tennessee faces Alabama in a doubleheader today, looking to take the series after suffering a tough 12-8 loss last night in Game 1. Now, Jay, you were there covering the game. What did you see, and what are you hoping to see this afternoon?
Yeah, well, I was just seeing an absolute disaster class by the pitching staff today. Landon Mack and Cam Appenzeller both struggled just like last week. They both had 9 combined earned runs, with Mack only throwing 2.1 innings. And also the big problem with the pitching staff was getting runners on base. 20 runners were on base yesterday, and especially with 10 walks, 6 hit by pitches. 4 of those hit by pitches were in the same inning, and 3 different innings where Alabama scored 3 runs. It was an all right game offensively for Tennessee, but with a pitching performance like that, you're just not going to win these types of games.
Yeah, Jay, I mean, it seems like it's been forever since Mississippi State was the opponent for Tennessee. When we were in Starkville, that's that big-time sweep, and that just seemed like a completely different team. But and then last weekend with Ole Miss coming to town, also dropping 2 of those games, they've looked so good in like one game, but they just can't put 2 back-to-back, and that's the problem. But obviously, Alabama in town, Bama opened it up last night in the top of the first inning with a run in the top of the first. Tennessee comes back and answers. But at that point, you knew it was going to be kind of an offensive-minded game. You knew a lot of points were going to be scored, and you knew that Tennessee was going to have hot bats throughout the entirety of that game 1. And they did for a little bit of time through the first half, but just couldn't sustain it. And Alabama kept the foot on the gas, and the deficit was just too much for Tennessee to overcome at the end. And it's going to take a lot for Tennessee today to come away with back-to-back wins in a doubleheader, because usually that's the way it goes in doubleheaders. The way it starts is the way it's going to finish. So they've got to start quick and keep the foot on the gas all day long.
Yeah, Lewis, the first thing I want to start with is that this team cannot play with a lead, and that has been an issue. Last night's lead was short-lived, and it was early on. And the offensive output that you described is a good thing, because we want to see that out of Tennessee, even with the bullpen struggles. And that bullpen budget is very low going into this one. They have 18 or more innings to play of baseball today, and that is not going to work. And Bama came into this one losing 6 of their last 8, but last night it looks like they won 8 in a row. And that is something Tennessee needs to find a way to slow down and come out of this doubleheader hopefully 1-1. What I'm looking for here is 3 specific players: Blaine Brown, Henry Ford, and Blake Grimmer. These 3 players come in with double-digit home runs, and this is going to be an X factor for Tennessee today. If they could get these bats going, Henry Ford had a home run yesterday. That is a great start, something we want to see. Hopefully that can continue with them. Tegan Kuhns as well. He had 10 strikeouts and just 1 walk last Saturday. He gets the opening start for game 1 in this doubleheader, coming off that probably his best start of the year. Hopefully he can continue that momentum going into today's games.
Tommy, you make a great point, losing 6 of their last 8 games. Now, this is a 13-ranked Alabama team that fell to an unranked UAB 11-2 earlier in the midweek, and then comes to Knoxville and gets it done against the Volunteers. What do you guys expect to see this afternoon? What are your predictions?
Yeah, well, most of the time a doubleheader is going to end up in a sweep. It's all about the momentum there. And something that gives me hope for Tennessee today is that Tegan Kuhns and Evan Blanco are both the pitchers. They've been probably the 2 best pitchers on the team coming back the last 2 weeks. And the offense itself has been very good yesterday in the midweek game and on Sunday versus Ole Miss. If the offense can keep up the momentum, and if Kuhns and Blanco can both have very solid games, eat up those innings for Tennessee, I could definitely see Tennessee taking both games and ending up with a series win.
I could also see both games going Tennessee's way, but it's going to depend on whether or not, obviously, losing to an in-state rival like Alabama did in the midweek, that's probably going to make you a little mad, especially coming into Knoxville for a weekend series. But if we get the Alabama team that lost to UAB in the midweek and lost 6 of their last 8 games, heck yeah, absolutely we have a chance to win both, and Tennessee needs to win both. They need it.
Yeah, I wanted to say, what version of Tennessee are we going to get in this series? Last night we saw it was the pitching struggles. Today, we don't know. What Bama team are we going to get today, too? Let's figure out what we're going to do here. Tennessee needs to get both of these games. We mentioned it, and it's a big part of what Tennessee can do going into postseason play. Personally, I think they got to get one of them and just go 1-1, hopefully.
Now, you mentioned that Tegan Kuhns will be starting in that first game, followed by Evan Blanco in the second game. Are there any arms that stand out to you guys that you're hoping to see have a successful day here today following one of those starters?
Well, if it's going to be anyone, it's got to be Bo Rudy. He's been one of the best relief pitchers so far this year. If he can come in for a few innings in either game 2 or game 3, whichever pitcher comes out first, I could definitely see Bo Rudy being a big impact out of the bullpen.
You've got to have both of your starters come out hot. Not like last night. Mac kind of struggled a little bit, and every pitcher that came in struggled a little bit last night for Tennessee. You've got to have Coons and Blanco come in and have lights-out performances to start the game, and you bring in somebody like Bo Rudy to finish it off, and that's how you get it done.
Yeah, I'm going to double down on the starters there, Lewis, but they need length. They don't need lights-out performance. They need length. This bullpen is demolished. And someone specifically, I'm going to get away from a name we haven't said yet, Cam Appenzeller, who's off to a phenomenal start in SEC play, has struggled as of late. If he can get moving here and get back on the road, if he gets on the bump tonight, we don't know if that's going to happen, but hopefully if he
had
does,
enough innings yesterday. He's probably not going to play.
Yeah.
Yeah, and struggled a little bit yesterday, which is not typical for his fashion. So make sure to stay up to date and be watching to see who comes in. Now, Tennessee baseball isn't the only team facing the Crimson Tide this weekend. Lady Ball softball will also face Alabama in a top 10 matchup right down the street at Sherry Parker Lee. To give you a look at this series matchup, let's send it over to our softball cast. Guys, what do you have for us?
Thanks, Allie. I'm Connor Whitney, joined by Chance Jones, Grayson McInnes, and Cheyenne Surgeon. It's the biggest series of the season for the 9th-ranked Lady Vols as they welcome 2nd-ranked Alabama for a 3-game set on Senior Day weekend. This is the first meeting between the two teams since the 2024 Super Regional, in which the Tide knocked out the Lady Vols from the NCAA tournament. Tennessee enters the series 5th in SEC standings, and with the postseason looming, this series has massive implications for both conference and NCAA tournament. And guys, the pitching staff has gotten them to this point all season long, and you expect Cheyenne, this pitching sergeant, you'd expect the pitching staff to guide them all weekend long again.
Yes, well, the pitching staff is what is going to make or break this series. You have seen the showcase for Margeco and Pickens being able to showcase what they can do on Tuesday night, with Margeco having 10 strikeouts and then Pickens coming in to finish out that game. And then, of course, you add in Aaron Newer has a 0.82 earned run average. I mean, this staff is stacked, and they are going to be the make or break, and it's going to be a pitcher's duel this series. I mean, you have two elite SEC arguably the best pitching staffs in the nation in college softball, and that's going to be what makes it great.
I completely agree. This series is going to be decided on the mound just as much as it is behind the plate. Everything Tennessee does, Alabama also does really well. If you can do it, I can do it better. That's basically going to be the story of this weekend. They're both top 2 in every major statistical category that you can think of: hits, runs, ERA, WHIP, every major category that limits the opposing offense. Tennessee and Alabama are 1 and 2. They're right next to each other. It's going to be a big series. The pitching staff needs to show up. They need to do what they've done all game, every season, and that is be the dominant force on the mound that carries the Lady Vols softball team to the win, especially with their offense struggling as of late. The pitching staff is so critical in this series because Alabama has a really high-powered offense. They've got 3 batters batting over 400 and another 3 batters over 330 this year. They punish pitchers who make mistakes. You cannot have mistakes. It is absolutely critical this weekend that the pitching staff shuts down the Alabama offense, because I don't really trust the Lady Vols offense if this series evolves into a shootout.
Yeah, the Tennessee pitching staff definitely needs to be strong. They need to adjust, though. This Alabama offensive lineup is really good at determining a pitch just based off body language. So they need to change and adjust and figure out what this Alabama team is swinging at and throw those pitches a little bit less, because they are sitting on certain pitches. They've been watching this team all year round, and they are sitting on these Lady Vols pitches. They need to adjust.
So you're saying you want them to stay ahead of the curve and adjust to their adjustments, pretty much?
Yes, adjust to the adjustment.
It's a chess match all weekend long, and a chess match that you would expect as well, with Tennessee's offense struggling. Just 3 hits against Radford on Tuesday in a 2-1 victory. The offense didn't look good. The offense is going to have to take advantage of the few opportunities they're going to have against a very talented pitching staff from Alabama.
Yeah, and it really is just that simple. Tennessee needs to hit the ball. They need to get on base more than anything. Radford game this weekend, we're not going to talk a lot about it, but they only scored 2 runs. They had 3 hits. That's not acceptable against a midweek opponent who's under 500 on the year. They need to figure that out. They need to get that turned around if they want to win this series. Because like we've talked about, Alabama's pitching staff is elite. They're going to have a big task this weekend. They just have to lock in and just put your head down and go to work behind the plate.
They need to be competitive. As Coach Weekly says all the time, they need to be competitive. Every presser I've ever been in, she's said those words. She drills it in their players' minds. And She really focuses on small ball, and that's what they need to do this weekend against Alabama. They need to hit and run. They need to bunt. They need to steal bases. They need to have aggressive base running and be locked in at the plate to face such an elite staff from Alabama, and it's going to come down to whether or not they can do that.
And with the re-addition of Sophia Knight back into the lineup as well, that should really help. Coach Weekly has called her a spark plug all season long. You factor her back into the top of the lineup, that should really continue to get things going and set the tone for this Lady Vols lineup against a very good pitching staff for Alabama. Should be a very entertaining series all weekend long. A lot on the line for Tennessee this weekend at Sherry Parker Lee Stadium. First pitch is tomorrow afternoon at 4 p.m. That's all we have for softball. On the other side of the break, a live interview with Lady Vol for Life, Brittany Tarwater, who hosted Rocky Top Royale earlier this week. But first, our very own Carmen Rivera took a look at VFLs looking to make it into the NFL this weekend. Take a look.
A 3-day event, 257 picks, 7 rounds, and 32 teams. One dream, the NFL Draft. As the NFL Draft starts, a night where some of the most prominent faces in college football are showcased on their way to the next level. Several former Volunteer football players are looking to hear their name called across all 3 days and become the next Vols in the NFL. Head coach Josh Heupel has 7 former players entering this year's draft, including Jermod McCoy, Colton Hood, Chris Brazel II, Joshua Joseph, Bryson Eason, Miles Kitzelman, and Joey Aguilar. Some of Tennessee's top NFL draft prospects enter this year's class with early round potential and expectations to make an early impact at the next level. Defensive back Jermod McCoy heads into the draft as one of Tennessee's top prospects, following an all-SEC season in 2024. After missing the 2025 season with an ACL injury, he returned to run a strong 40-yard dash in Pro Day in front of NFL scouts, reinforcing his status as high-level prospect. Colton Hood provided consistent play in the secondary for Tennessee, finishing with around 50 total tackles while contributing in both pass coverage and run support. Wide receiver Chris Brazel II emerged as a key target for Tennessee, posting 62 catches for over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns, becoming one of the team's top big play options. Quarterback Joey Aguilar is projected as a late round or priority free agent option, adding depth to this year's quarterback class. For Torch Sports, I'm Carmen Rivera.
While some Vols will get their names called this weekend in the draft, some got their names called right here on Rocky Top. On Monday, our very own Brittany Tarwater, a 2009 Tennessee alum, had the honor of hosting the 2026 Rocky Top Royale Awards. This ceremony came together to celebrate some of the biggest names and moments in Tennessee athletics this year. And it was such a special evening for everyone involved.
Perhaps most importantly, you are using the platform that you have as Vols and as Lady Vols to pour into others, to give back, and to serve our community. And for that, I say let's celebrate. Yeah. Congratulations to this year's Staff Persons of the Year, Caitlin Ryan. This year's Smoky Cup recipient, female newcomer of the year is Miss Kiki Ryan. Congratulations to Kat Olia. Your Mr. Tennessee winners are Nick Stone. This year's Moment of the Year goes to Camille Spink.
The legend is in the building. Miss Brittany
she is.
Tarwater, thank you for being here. Now, not only is Brittany a UT alum, but she's a WVLT anchor and reporter, a UT journalism professor, and a former UT swimming athlete and RTVC advisor. Brittany, how did you get this opportunity?
Yeah, this is really special. And, I've been in Knoxville for a long time, right? And I have just had the pleasure of maintaining relationships with so many people in the athletics department. So I was speaking to a friend who actually works very closely with this event, and she asked if I would like to be involved, and I just could not have thought of a better honor. So I gladly said yes. I'm sure they asked many people who were not available.
Well, now us common folk over here, we don't really get to come to these events. Can you tell us a little bit about what goes on?
Yeah, this is a great event. And I think one of the things that makes it special is that it is a closed event. And that's intentional so the athletes can let their hair down, they can get dressed up, they can celebrate and not have to worry about performing or being on, so to say. So that's one of the things that makes it special. But it also just recognizes all of the achievements. I think sometimes in the athletics department, they do a really nice job of bringing the athletes together, but by nature of the way that teams work, they can kind of get into silos. So this is another way that they can all be in the same room, they can celebrate everything that they've done for the season, and they can just have a really good time.
Can you tell me about a couple of the awards that you got to present? I know you got to talk to Camille Spink, Carlin Pickens. What are some of those awards?
Yeah, I mean, it is unbelievable to think about what's being done in this athletics department, and Camille Spink will just always have a special place in my heart because not only is she a swimmer, but she also swims the same events that I swam. She is much faster, but yeah, so that was really fun to be able to celebrate her. And the way that these awards work is the athletes are nominated by the Student Athlete Advisory Committee, so they're peer nominated, and then they're reviewed with the athletics directors and the department. So it's great to see that they're recognizing themselves and they're celebrating those accomplishments together. So we had Athlete of the Year on each side, but one of the things that really stood out to me was some of the community service that they recognized. So what the athletes are doing outside of their sport, and I noticed that was a theme that I saw with many of the awards, that it wasn't just what they were doing in their sport, but they were looking at who these athletes are holistically.
Now, Jordan Thomas, the football player, he got a really special award. Can you tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so of course, he has just been so gracious to share his story, and he was recently named a torchbearer. So he was recognized for the honor that he recently received as a torchbearer, because it's, one thing I learned, they've done the Torchbearer Award since 1931, and only 34 student athletes have ever been honored. And recently we've had more of them. The last 4 years, they've had one every single year, but it hasn't always been that way. So I think that was really special for him to receive that award. And then he was recognized for another award that he was doing just for his investment into the team and into the community as well.
Well, one thing that we've talked about all year long is, the era we're in of NIL and the transfer portal. It's hard to find unity in teams. And you talked to me a little earlier and said that it was just really cool to see all the teams and their unity. Can you tell me a little bit about the relationships that you saw?
Alexia, I'm glad you asked that, because that was one of the things that was the most special to me when I was reflecting on this. It was everybody was in the room. It was just so many people were there. So there were all the chairs and anybody could sit wherever they wanted to sit. But you saw the teams come together, sit together, cheer for one another. So it was really great that you could see so clearly the way that these teams celebrated one another, they supported one another, and they just enjoyed being together, and they celebrated other sports too. So that just is one of the things that makes it just so special at this event. And I'll tell you what, this concept was something that started. It's very different when I was a senior, and it was called the Volskers, kind of a play on the Oscars to recognize the achievements. So to see the way that it's evolved over these many years, but it's maintained its tradition, is just something that's really special.
Well, on behalf of all of us, I don't think they could have chosen anyone better to be the host. Brittany, thank you so much for taking the time out and share your experience with us. Unfortunately, that is all the time we have with you today. We're going to be sending it back to the desk to you, Allie.
Thank you so much, Alexi, and to Brittany Tarwater as well. Such a great opportunity to honor these athletes' incredible achievements. Speaking of, the women's golf team just gave Rocky Top another reason to celebrate. With more on that story, I'll send it over to Izzy Osman.
It was a historic week for the Lady Vols golf team as they took home their first ever SEC championship this past Tuesday in Bel Air, Florida, defeating the number 8 Auburn Tigers 3-2 in the match play finals. This marks the 4th tournament win of the season for Tennessee, setting a new program record for tournament wins in a season. All eyes were on Kira Van Can on hole 17 as she was playing neck and neck with Auburn's Karis Warby. While both players landed on the fairway, Van Can's approach shot on the green landed her within 3 feet of the pin. She went on to sink the putt to clinch the team the SEC championship. While the team won the tournament as a whole, Madison Mesmer tied for second place in the individual play, shooting 3 under par on the last day to finish 6 under. She earned the highest individual finish by a freshman at the SEC Championship in program history and highest by a Lady Vols since 2011. Now, the men's golf team is currently playing in round 3 of their SEC tournament in Sea Island, Florida. After yesterday's play and today's play, so far they currently sit at 12th. Leading the way for the Vols is senior Josh Hill, who just now moved up to 18th place overall and sits at a score of 5 under par. He's currently in the middle of round 3 after he teed off at 9 a.m. this morning. Redshirt senior Lance Simpson is not far behind Hill. After a rough round 1, carding 3 bogeys on the front 9, he then went on to shoot even through the back 9 and currently sits at a score of 2 under par and tied for 33rd in the match. Rounding out the top 3 for the Vols is freshman Chase Keys, who is tied for 46th and has an overall score of 1 over par. That's all the golf updates I have for you today. Back to you, Allie.
Thank you so much, Izzy. Tennessee students are constantly striving for excellence on the field, but also in the classroom. And the incredible faculty and staff here at the College of Communication and Information make that possible. One of which is my very own professor, Gene Wojciechowski. And I had the chance to speak with him about the release of his new novel, I'll Carry. Take a look. You probably know him for his 26 years with ESPN, or his countless stories on College Game Day. But to many UT students, he's a professor and a mentor.
You have to be prepared. Dean Joe Mazer asked if I would be interested in considering coming back, and I hadn't really ever thought about something like that before, but it was sort of a life experience, sort of opportunity. So I figured, why not take the leap of faith and see how it went and have some fun with it, and I'm glad I did. It's been a great experience.
Gene Wojciechowski is also a best-selling author. His most recent publication, a fiction piece on golf.
Golf, to me, is the common denominator of our lives when it comes to athletics, because we can play it from the time we're little kids to the time we're really old.
But it's about more than just the sport.
I'd like to think that there are universal themes. In this case, it's father and son, but you could easily apply it to parent and child. I just use golf as a vehicle. And so if you don't know golf, well, what I do is try to educate you.
UT professor and colleague of Wojciechowski, Dr. Shannon Scoville, finished the book just days after it was published.
The way he writes about character and scene, those are things that can be applied to practical reporting, but it also has a voice to it. It's fun. It's such a Gene book because it's written with such a sophistication and intellectualism, but it's also funny. And it's a novel, so you get lost in the story, but it's smart. And it's a golfer's expert book that you can appreciate even if you're not a golfer. So it's so cool that he did this while he was here and that we all got to watch it and now we all get to celebrate it.
And while he may be the professor, he learns something new from his students every day.
Well, I probably get more out of experiencing what the students have to say and getting their perspectives and learning what they think and what they want to learn than the other way around. So I'm really the lucky one, and the poor students are the ones hoping not to get the F pluses.
In Knoxville, Tennessee, I'm Allie Campbell. Definitely make sure to check out I'll Carry, a must-read for all. And with just 3 weeks left in the regular season, our own Drea Peebles has an update for us on the Tennessee track team. Drea?
Yeah, guys, I'm live right outside of Tom Black Track, and if you like speed, let me tell you, Tennessee gave you plenty of it this past weekend. Across from 3 meets nationwide, the Vols and Lady Vols showed up and showed out, especially on the track. Starting with Devontae Howell on the 100 meter, he ran at 10.08 seconds, putting him top 10 in the NCAA this outdoor season. Now, on the women's side, it was also a history-making day for them as well. Lauren Jarrett ran an 11.06 personal best record, which is now the 3rd fastest in program history. And freshman Dana Wilson, she also set the tone early, becoming the fastest freshman in Lady Vol history. But guys, it doesn't stop there. In the 200 meter, Trenard Falson clocked a 20.36, finishing 2nd, while the women's 4x100 team raced to a strong 3rd place finish. Then in the 4x400, the Lady Vols delivered one of the top performances in program history, running 3 minutes 24.96 seconds, which is now the 2nd fastest time ever at Tennessee. But speed was not the only great thing. Tennessee also made noise in the field as well. Aiden Ivkovitz picked up the picked up the hammer throw win with a 66-meter mark. This is his third personal record in just 3 weeks, while Ismailia Sawani cleared a personal best of 5.70 meters to take first place and moved up to third all-time in program history. And then in discus, Wesley Badenhorst added another win with a new PR, continuing a strong stretch in the field events. With record-breaking performances across sprints and distance and in-field events, Tennessee is building momentum just at the perfect time this season. Reporting from Tom Black Track, I'm Drea Peoples. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Drea. Now, this weekend's sports calendar is atypical, so make sure to update your calendars. Baseball began their series last night and will continue with a doubleheader this evening, while Tennessee softball will begin on Saturday and continue through Monday night. For continuing coverage of these games this weekend, check out our social media at TorchSportsUTK on Instagram and TikTok and at TorchSports_UTK on X. That's all for today's episode. We'll be right back here same time next week. Let's turn the tide and beat Alabama this weekend. As always, go Vols.